The world is not in peril. The world is peril. And so, the world does not need us to save it. The world doesn't need anything from us, really. And so, I think when we realize this, we realize that the world is not in need of us. We understand that our actions in the world aren't, the quality of our actions in the world are not decided upon as being good or bad based on the need that is in the world. To say that the world needs us to do something for it is to anthropomorphize the world, because we identify with need, and so we project this idea of need onto the world. And so I think it's fun to see how the ego plays its tricks even on people who are on a spiritual quote unquote path, because I heard a guy talking, the inspiration for this, what I'm talking about here is, I heard a guy talking on YouTube, and he was saying about how manifestation is becoming a hot topic, and people are talking more about it. And he sort of objected to this idea that people try to envision things for their own selfish motives. But and there's something to that, that there's more that we can be doing with our powers than to manifest silly things, or things that someone else may think is silly. But to us it seems very vital and important, and it's we're obsessed about it. But I don't think, I think that that sort of judgment of is it, are we doing manifesting out of a selfish need, or an ego-based sort of identity? I think that's a bit, there's an irony in that, because that's, that is attachment to this idea of, what is the right thing, as if we know what the right thing is. The guy was talking about we could be, we could be manifesting some cure for some disease or something. But when I was thinking about that, often what we do as humans is when we try to solve a problem, we create more problems. And so, the idea that we can make the world better is often, the greatest, is behind a lot of the evils that take place in the world. I mean, if you look at every, evil sort of, is that in hindsight seems very obviously evil. All these things, these movements that were started were was by people who, had radical beliefs about what is good. And, and a lot of the things, that we do in order to make things better is sort of like introducing an invasive species into the world. And so, like, let's say we try to cure diseases. It's like, is that really what the world needs? Does the world need sick people to be healthier? Is that, like the compassionate, part of our, sort of from the human perspective is like, well, like they're suffering, we should do something about it. But, what about, it's like, is that necessarily better, because, you can, by saving some people who have sickness and, solving a lot of the problems that we've had, a lot of, like people don't die in childbirth anymore, infant mortality is way down, and, people are not dying of diseases that, have existed. And so we have, solved a lot of these health problems that are, created by nature. But, it's like, look at the world that we live in. Is that better? Is it better that we have more people now, Or is it, is it better that we have less people? I don't know, it's like, who's to say? But, this idea that we need to be motivated by some higher idea of morality is sort of, it's an anthropomorphic way of looking at morality. Morality is, it's subjective. It is completely subjective. And, I think the idea that we, and the idea that we shouldn't like manifest things for our selfish purposes overlooks sort of the necessity that some people, because what we end up manifesting when we do our selfish, things is we often manifest the image that we wanted plus our shadow. And that serves a very valuable purpose. It's very important for a person to manifest what is in their heart, because that shows them what is in their heart. And sometimes when we find out what's in our heart, we realize we got some unresolved problems. And the only way we can come face to face with those problems is through the manifestation of them into something in the material world. Now, most people don't, they probably don't consider this, but, the way I look at everything, that I manifest and that I create and pursue in this life, I look at it from the standpoint of, what is it that I can learn from this situation, And so any experience that I embark upon, I can't lose, because I'm always going to learn something. So whenever we manifest, I think my perspective is what would be a good motive is to further our understanding of ourselves, of others, of human nature, of the environment, of the spirit, of God, And sometimes we need to be motivated by selfish things in order to come face to face with the truth. Now, most people obviously don't learn their lessons when they're, put in their face over and over and over again. But if they had the wisdom to notice these things, then yes, good comes out of selfish, childish, immature acts. And, there's a reason, there's a reason for immaturity. Immaturity is necessary in order to acquire true wisdom. You need to go through adolescence. You need to go through puberty and you need to do stupid things. You need to do stupid, selfish things, sometimes destructive to yourself and others. Sometimes, anyone who's succeeded and is at the top of anything, they're going to have some like skeletons in their closet, and they're going to have some regrets, and they're going to think about, they're going to, if you really like look at them closely and they are honest about like how they got from here to there, they're going to tell you that they probably endured a lot of shit and, did some stuff that they weren't proud of. And so like they're, like to judge somebody who hasn't, gone on their journey and to say, hey, you should be like doing the noble thing, I think that undermines the greater good of finding what it truly means to be fulfilled, to be whole, to not depend on, manifestation or anything else, just to see, that the potential inside of us is limitless, and we can create beautiful things and we can create ugly things, and we're all, capable of this. And that's sort of, I think, is a big step towards finding inner peace, is to see that sort of, that's, I think it's called like the quantum entanglement exists within all of us. The cat is both alive and dead inside the box, and it's, it's dead when we, and that is like the limitless potential that exists within inside of us. Anyhow, so yeah, just some thoughts. Y'all have a good one.